Okay, so we're live streaming right now.
Great. Hello to everyone on the live stream.
We are on the live stream, so welcome.
Do they get this part on the replay? This is the part on the replay where if you're watching on replay, you could just skip forward 5 minutes because we've got 5 minutes to wait.
I'll give you 10-minute reminders, 5-minute reminder.
Great.
Let me know when you want me to let people in.
I'm ready whenever. I'm happy to, yeah. It's a bit, maybe a little early, I don't know. We could small talk for 5 minutes. Very British.
So how's the weather? Oh, I just done a 2-hour pelvis workshop, so I'm a bit.
Oh, so you're deep in the bowl.
Yeah, it was a lot of info though. It's kind of for yoga teachers, so
okay.
I
did in my membership this afternoon. We had Vic Sanderson come in and do an authentic relating like workshop. It was so good. Sort of that edge of like really showing up in communication and, you know, practicing in a safe space. But whew, it was brave. You know, there was some really edgy things. Name your assumptions you're making about the other person, things like that. It was really good, really good. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Oh.
And you were doing this online?
Yeah, so I have a membership, and it's like you know, so I do workshops each month, and that was one. So there was like 12 or 15 people there and pairing up and doing it. And yeah, it was great. It was like, what was the other one? Name your assumptions. Oh, and ask whatever you want to ask. Follow your curiosity and ask whatever question you want to ask the other person.
About the other person? Oh, wow.
It's really, really good. So it's been a really crazy day for me. Hold like that, and then this, and then all the other stuff. Yeah. Good. I reckon we could let people in now.
Okie dokes. I think I get more on edge on doing hosting than running my own session.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be a host.
I'm touching my edges.
Yeah, it's a different embodiment, right?
Welcome, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. Got 3 minutes to go. So if you would like to rename yourselves and put where you are calling in from.
And Jane, I can take over letting people in from the waiting room while you do your intro if you want.
Okay, I have turned it off.
Great. Yeah, great.
So that should make that easy.
How is everyone doing? Would you mind sharing in the chat how many sessions you've attended so far? Let's see if this is someone's first session. Also interesting to know.
Midnight. Whoo! Oh, welcome, Shona. 4 sessions.
Yeah, yesterday I was like, I feel refreshed. I can do like a lot more sessions. And then today is like, okay, I feel like we've been doing this for a long time now.
It's kind of like getting 3/4 of the way in a big feast.
Yeah.
Okay, got to pace myself.
we're still going. I actually thought it was gonna be till Friday, but it's actually going through Saturday.
I know, there was a whole other day added. Yeah. I'm really good by, you know, these numbers aren't crazy. I mean, some of them are zillion sessions, yeah, but fourth, second, third, those are, you know, that's sounds very sensible.
Right.
I do the zillions on replay. Yeah, not at midnight. Excellent.
Okay, so I'm going to start recording. I just want to make sure that that is... Let me just stop that and start it, because I just want to make sure that that's...
There's a few people not muted.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was on the iCloud. So welcome everyone to this session that we have here with Erika and Patricia. And this session is why you don't do self-care. My name's Jane Dancy and I'm going to be hosting you for this session. So if you have any tech issues, please do message me. So thanks to those of you with the All Access Pass here live. Please do turn your cameras on if you can. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If whatever you're doing, please do. It provides really good feedback for the presenters. If you are watching a replay, you can purchase an All Access Pass to get into the live Zoom room and see these unlimited sessions. Please do share this event with anyone that you can think of that might find this useful. I'm going to put all the details in the chat for you. So if you can think of someone who might benefit from this, please do share it. And we'll tell you more about the courses offered at the end. Ilan's course about shaking to heal is super cheap, so we want it to be available to all, whilst the courses for facilitators are all about developing your superpowers. There'll be group sessions to integrate. If you're curious, check out the details that I've just posted. Now, before we start, a few safety things. Are you feeling resourced right now? Is watching this kind and the right thing to do? Are you better served by one-to-one therapy? This is education, it's not therapy, and it's not designed for people currently in the worst of trauma. Many of our teachers have been there, so there's no judgment, but you will need to be robust for these sessions. And you don't need to binge. Replays are going to be sent out, and the replays are for those with the All Access Pass. And again, I've put the details in the chat. If you do find that you are tensing up, getting agitated or spacing out, do move, take a breath, and you can always watch this later. You do what you need to do. Having said that, I hope that you will enjoy this session. And I'm just going to give you a bit of information about our two presenters. So Patricia is a specialist in developmental trauma. She integrates her knowledge and experience of 20 plus years on Eastern philosophies, trauma-sensitive methods to family constellations and attachment-based approaches. She is who young yogis want to be when they grow up. And then we have Erika. Erika's worked with many types of trauma, including suicide, drug and alcohol addiction, domestic violence, and ex-untouchable women in India. She focuses on helping women who are too nice find their power. She's probably going to get really nervous watching you, teaching you all this amazing stuff. I reckon you're probably like, every time you hear that, you're like, ah. So over to you two now. And I'm just going to spotlight you both. There you go.
Thank you, Jane. Hi, everyone. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here. And let's get to it, because we have very limited time to talk about this subject that both Erika and I are very passionate about. So as we start, we would love to hear from you in the chat and share with us, please, if you'd like, how comfortable do you feel with your self-care? And by comfortable, I mean, I'm at a 10 if I know what I need. I have a different range of things that I know that I need for my self-care. I know when to do them in the right amount, in the moment that I need them. And one would be, I have no idea what self-care means. How do you eat that? And of course, halfway or a 5 or a 6, I sort of know what I should be doing, but I don't usually do it. 3, 7, 8, 4, beautiful to see such a wide range. You are all welcome here. We will address these to all of you guys. 2, 7, 3 or 4, 8 to 9, to probably 3 to 5. My self-care sucks, I admit it. That's perfect, that you're in the right place. If we were talking about self-care, just like if this were a regular self-care workshop, we would be talking about, why would it's important to self-care and ideas about self-care and sharing our stories. And that is very important. That's a valuable step, particularly, yes, if you're like a 1 or like a 2, right? It's important to start there. But we're gonna take it up a notch today because we're in a trauma summit. So the way that we're gonna approach this is, yes, the importance of self-care, but we're gonna explore, to me, when something is trauma related, it's usually, of course, it's not a hard rule, but usually it's like, I know that I gotta stop eating these things. I know that I should be stopping this behavior. I should change it. I know it, I've tried, and I just can't see myself doing it. That's when I explore a relationship to trauma. Because we all have resources to our thinking brain and to our will. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's enough to say, I gotta go and do this change, and we can get ourselves up and go there. Say if you're thirsty, you can get up and go get a glass of water. So mind, intention, body, action, right? But sometimes with some subjects, we get halfway only. This is when I explore issues with trauma. And this is why the title of this session is Why You Can't Self-Care. We know we get benefits from self-care. We know we have relatively accessible resources for self-care, but we don't do it. Or we find excuses, or we find, oh no, going to a spa for a full day is too expensive for me. Like, no, right? We're just finding excuses if we go to that reason for not self-care, because that's not the way, that's not the only way to do it, right? So we're gonna be touching on 3 main subjects around trauma-related blockages to self-care. And the first one that I'm gonna touch into is that what's gonna happen if we get to cross that bridge, that difficult bridge of getting the money for the spa, or making time for myself, or putting my phone away for 30 minutes. So once we get over that difficult action that we cannot manage to do, what's gonna be on the other side of the bridge? What's 1 or 2 words that come into your mind when you envision, or if you know it, what's on the other side of the bridge? Acceptance, relaxation, feeling good, balance, calm, bring them on. Joy, freedom, worth. I'm worthy of feeling good. I have no idea, a good one. Self-love, clean, health. Okay, no more fear. So being fearless. So I'm gonna take a few of these. Being fearless, feeling calm, and feeling good with myself and my self-worth. What comes up when we touch into these 4 words? Sometimes we do not know what these words mean in our body. We know what they mean in our head or in a medicine advertising in the TV, particularly in the US. We see how that's supposed to look, but we don't know it in our body. So how familiar am I with the feeling of acceptance in the body, of calmness, of relaxation, of self-worth, of well-being, and of being fearless? That these are very interesting explorations. So one of the things, yeah, someone's laughing in the chat, it makes more sense now, of course. One of the embodied explorations of this is actually doing practices and doing the work to start being able to digest this type of experiences. So these types of, we call them states in the body. So whatever each one of us, because we all got different stories, how can we get there in our bodies? And how can we start linking where am I right now to those states? Of course, if it were easy, we would all be doing it. So there are reasons in between, and we're going to be touching on some of those in a second, of why it's not so easy to be crossing that bridge constantly. And we accept less than in ourselves, in our work, in our relationships, in our everyday life. We accept less than we would when we do not know those states. Imagine if we were raised in the ideal household where you feel nourished, listened to, respected. It's not that they do everything that you want all the time, but you feel acknowledged and you feel that there will be a time for your needs to be taken care of. And imagine if you grow up there, what would it feel if we come into contact with a partner who's abusive and rude and not nice? We'd be like, huh? Right? Because it feels different. But since most of us did not grow in that place, we're like, oh, sure. Yeah. So embodying those states that we want to get to, that's one of the reasons why we don't self-care. And let's explore within that bridge. I mentioned a bridge that we're gonna cross. I usually call it the cleaning up towards those states. And the thing is, particularly when it's trauma related, there were some things that happened along the way in our lives that made us close up. That was too painful, so I numb out. That was too harmful, I numb out and I retract from life. I retract from feeling. That was too fearful, so I stopped feeling. The thing with feelings, that was very smart at the time because yes, it was too much, it was too big. But when we close the pathways to feeling the negative stuff, and I'm quoting negative because I have a whole speech around negative emotions and labeling them as negative. But let's say the uncomfortable emotions, we also close the pathway to the nice emotions. It's the same route. It made sense that at some point we cut that, but then we also cut access to that. So I will close up in my space and move over to Erika in a second, just by mentioning 2 points about self-care. And there are 2 ways to self-care that I say. No, not that this is the absolute truth, not at all. It's just a classification and I might change it in 10 years. But 2 things that I explore with self-care. One is soothing and looking to feel good. So I had a bad day, difficult day, and I go find a chocolate cake that I like. Not so bad. If I eat the whole cake, then we would be talking about different things, but I'm soothing. So a bath, a shower, a comfy bed, my go-to movie that I've seen like 100 times probably by now, because this is a resource that I use a lot, but this is soothing and this is self-care. There is another type of self-care which has a different tone, and I call it being with what is. Being with what is means, yes, making the time to the space to say, I am feeling really upset. And I am willing to start feeling into my upsetness. I am really sad and I need to explore what's happening. And I need to see why I'm sad right now, because it's going to lead me to clarity and changes that I need to do in my life. So this type of self-care does not necessarily look nice, right? It's not the same as soothing. Both are good because they're going to help me cross the bridge. But self-care is not just about the nice things, the cherry on top, that you're so beautiful and you're so pretty and you're light and nothing but light and all of that stuff works sometimes. Sometimes we need this other resource that's stepping into other things and acknowledging and having that difficult talk with my partner where I say, you know what, this is not working for me. We really need to change this. Otherwise, I'm out. That's a really difficult conversation to have, but it is self-care because I am taking care of my well-being, right? So I just wanted to make these two distinctions of that crossing the bridge over to those states of well-being that we want to get to through self-care. So over to Erika.
Oh, that was great, Patricia. I could keep listening to you. And that was exactly what I was just going to move on to. I thought you were making a slightly different point, and I was going to say, and there's a third type of self-care, which is the self-care which is around setting boundaries, like doing the difficult thing that feels uncomfortable. You know, like we're all talking about this week is sort of finding safe ways to feel unsafe. And sometimes self-care is like putting ourselves in situations which don't feel comfortable or safe, but are in our best interests, like setting boundaries, saying no, stopping doing something. Yeah, it's not all like bubble baths and soft cashmere jumpers or something, you know? Yeah, so I really like that. And I was also thinking while you were talking about this, I was thinking, you know, the polyvagal theory and the window of tolerance of stress. I was thinking, gosh, also we also have a window of tolerance for joy and, you know, relaxation and ease. And actually that can get very narrow in terms of our trauma. I definitely had that. Like I felt much safer in negative emotions. I felt much safer in kind of slightly agitated or distressed states. And I had to really expand my window of tolerance for pleasure, you know, titrating pleasure up, titrating joy. One of my Buddhist teachers set me a practice about 6 or 7 years ago now, and it was a practice of taking delight in things, like just allowing oneself to experience delight. It's a very positive emotion, yeah. So I was just thinking while you were talking, like actually when we're unfamiliar with those more positive states, there can be a lot of fear around them. I felt much more less me when I went into them because I was attached to these other states of sort of distress or depression or anxiety. And then that fear, if there is fear around them, that will stop us self-caring because actually we don't feel safe to go into those more easeful states. So yeah, I'm just repeating what Patricia said, but those were 3 ideas that came up around, you know, the reasons we don't self-care are not because we're some sort of failure. Again, there'll be a protective mechanism going on there. Yeah, there'll be something that doesn't feel safe in us to do that. So as much as we titrate with difficulty, setting boundaries, saying no, discomfort, I think we also need to titrate. Titrate just means gently increase tolerance to like how much pleasure we can feel in the body. You know, when I eat this, can I allow myself 5% more pleasure? Can I take more delight in this thing in front of me? How does that feel in the body? And allowing that to feel safe. Anyway, that wasn't what I was meant to be talking about, but those are some other thoughts. The thing I did just want to touch on with a lot of the work that I do with women and the reasons we don't self-care is often because, well, if in the work that I do, and I saw this in the chat earlier, if we're trained to prioritize other people's needs and other people's wishes, if that's how we learn to stay safe in the world, then we have constantly been taught to and had to disconnect from our own needs and our own wishes. We've actively had to abandon them in order to fulfill someone else, and that becomes habitual and it becomes normal. And for a long time in my own life, I just didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I needed. It was all guided externally, yeah? So one of the reasons I think that lots of us don't self-care is because actually it's kind of hard for us to know what it is that we need or what we want. And that is a process of relearning to come back and feel into that and feel into our, the sensations of what does a yes feel like in my body? What does a no feel like in my body? What does disgust, Patricia talked about disgust the other day, what does disgust feel like in my body? Sort of re-owning anger. That's another thing that if you've been in any way marginalized or had trauma, you've probably not been allowed to hold on to your anger. So sort of refinding these kind of sensations in the body so that we can begin to get sensitive to what they might be communicating to us. And so again, no judgment, right? No judgment. If that's just the way that we have been trained and learned to be, there's a process there of coming back and learning what we need. And also, back to Patricia's point again, we've also been taught that self-care looks a certain way, and it's very soothing and it's very placating and it's very yin, in the self-care industry, it's all bubble baths and spas and relaxation, which is great. But actually, sometimes it's like a hard fucking no is the self-care. Actually, like, burning something down, not literally, is the self-care. And I wonder why we've been trained out of that, or self-care it's much softer. Well, because actually we might change things if we start to look at self-care differently, and who might be invested in that not happening. So those are my few thoughts. And I guess just to finish that thought, maybe the reason we don't self-care sometimes is that we have an image of what self-care looks like, which is based again on what other people are telling us it should look like, and is not deeply connected to actually what it feels like and what is needed in that moment, which is deeply personal each time. So yeah, those are my few thoughts. I'll hand back, Patricia, to your one.
Thanks. So we are usually very familiar of the places where we fail, right? I am not doing my self-care. I am not taking care of myself. I know that I put other people's needs first. And I would, whenever I work with these types of situations on one-on-ones, I say, be very careful of adding judgment here. And again, putting this in the list of why I am the worst person in the world, right? One thing is to observe, because the neutral observation will make us go into the practical. Otherwise, it's just feeding on that trauma of I'm not good enough, I am a terrible human being, I am stupid, I am not worth, blah, 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 blah. And we don't want to feed that anymore. And even when we're self-caring with therapy, we're still feeding on. I remember I had a person who she constantly reported, I am still doing it. Like, Patty, will you confirm that I am still bad and I am still thorough? I'm like, no, I'm not going to play that game, right? And this is where trauma comes into play, because it gets sneaky. It can sneak into these self-care things, right? Before we go into saying that we are bad or we are flawed because we don't self-care, let's see how it makes sense that we don't self-care. So imagine that for some way or another, we had stories where it was important to remain vigilant. Whether it was your mother, your father, your environment, your whomever, it was important for us to keep ourselves alert, which usually translates to anxiety or just the feeling of unease. And imagine that we suddenly take that body and put it into a warm bath with candles. It's not like the environment is really changing. I still have that very important instruction to keep myself safe. So of course, we're in the bathtub with the beautiful bubbles and stuff, and we're still like, where is it gonna come, right? Is it gonna come through the bath? Is it something gonna happen? So it's important to really validate that impulse to feel safe before we force ourselves to don't be safe. Because if we imagine ourselves going into that bathtub, we are going to lose that alertness. So we are going to take away our thing that's keeping us safe in this ugly, unsafe life that we understood it was at some point in our lives. So it's rude to just want to yank that off and pull it off and get rid of it. So we use several techniques to ease ourselves into realizing that that safety belonged to another situation and we're in a different environment. And for this moment, I am safe. Like one of these small exercises is just looking around and literally doing this, like really turning around and checking that there's a wall here. So I am safe. And this takes time to rewire, right? It's simple exercises like that, and all the way to therapy and actually dealing with these things that keep us alert. But it's a nicer way to understand and respect ourselves than just pushing ourselves to, I'm not relaxing, I should be relaxing, relax, because we're not doing it, right? We're actually pushing ourselves to do that. So finding that place of validation and respect and starting by that, that also gives us ease, right? Yeah. Do you want to add, Erika, something about the cultural aspect of our difficulties towards self-care?
I think the only thing, and I can only just really briefly touch on it, is sort of that feeling guilty, I'm not doing it well enough, and all of that adding that you just said, and also after we do it, feeling guilty, like that we took time for ourselves, that we did the thing that we needed. So the other side of that, of like, and I just want to flag, like when we self-care in whatever way, whether it's the more assertive, or if it's we've taken time and we've gone away and done the soothing thing, whatever it is, then feeling in somehow wrong because it's not familiar, because that's not what we were taught to be, how we were taught to be. So I think I just want to flag, like, if you self-care and then you feel guilty, it is that you're just hitting the edges of your conditioning, and it's not something to be believed. Yeah, so you could just take that as I'm on the right track, because suddenly my conditioning is coming back at me and telling me I'm selfish when I do this. Yeah, so I think I just wanted to show the other side of that.
Yeah, that's a great point, that we sometimes think, oh, I'm not feeling well after my self-care, and it's normal to hit some turbulence right after. Yeah. But ideally we will get over that. Yeah. Thank you, Erika. Thank you everyone for showing up. We will be very happy if you get some takeaways for the session, and we will also be very happy if you're like, I still cannot digest any of it, I'm not there. We can also hold you in that place. So thank you, Jane. Back at you.
Help if I unmuted myself. So thank you so much, Patricia and Erika, for that fantastic session. And as Patricia suggested, if you want to put it in the chat, if you've got a key takeaway, if you're not still digesting that, please do. And also know that the replays, all the info will be emailed out to you. And I'm going to put those links again in the chat. So you'll get an email about the replays. And remember that you can still invite your friends or your family. So at the end of this session, is there anyone that you're thinking, oh, wow, they really could do with coming along? And if you can tell them today. Don't tell them about this next week, because it will be too late. So if there is someone who will benefit, just think about the best way that you could tell them about it, and go right ahead and invite them straight after this session. And do wave, put your hand up if you have already invited someone. It's really good to see that. And the link's there in the chat. So this session's been about learning about trauma in a specific context. And one way to heal trauma is Elan's shaking method. And we are offering it. It's super, super cheap. As you can see here, It's much cheaper than what you'd normally find if you want. So if you want to do this, check out the link again about trauma as your superpower. And for coaches and trainers, there's also something special and specific for you. The facilitators course is all about healing and developing your trauma superpowers, and it includes group sessions to integrate what you're learning along the way.
Both me and Patricia are leading those sessions, so we've got different options, but we're both doing one of those.
Yeah, that's the 6-week course, isn't it? Yeah, brilliant. And if this isn't your bag, that's okay. There's loads of other methods. There's TRE, EMDR, somatic experiencing. There's loads of different ways to work with trauma. And as always, if you are in the global south or finances are an issue, do pop a message to request some financial help. That's always available. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you everyone for attending to this session.
Thank you everyone. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves.
Thanks everyone. This is my last session of this trauma event. I'm going away tomorrow, so I just want to say thank you.